Sorry, I don't think. Good morning, everyone. This is Vinay Joseph, your host. I'll be joined shortly by Pac. We'll get started with the webinar in a few minutes. We'll just give some more time for people to join. Hey, Pac. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Vinay. Good morning.
So we're just going to give a few more minutes for everyone to join. Then we'll get started. Meanwhile, let me just share my screen and make sure that everybody's able to see the screen properly. You able to see the screen now, Pac?
Yes, Vinay, I can see that.
Okay, I'm just going to make it big so that we all can see it. All right. I think it's 3 minutes past the scheduled time. So let's just get started. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining. Thanks a lot for your continued support on this Virtuoso Web 101 webinar series. Today is a really exciting day. I'm joined by one of our GSI partner leads from DXC Technologies, Pac. Pac is the global head and a test lead for a major customer at DXC. So today we are, in addition to talking about Virtuoso, for those who are new, just giving a quick introduction, we're going to do a detailed walkthrough with Pac. We're going to uncover what's happened with his project, this engagement that he's been leading for the past 1 year. We'll understand how they've been able to implement Virtuoso in testing a very critical application for the end customer, how they've gone about doing it, what was the background to it, how they got started, and what are the learnings from their implementations as well. We'll talk about a little bit about their journey from a migration perspective as well, and that's essentially what we're going to cover. But to get started, let's just start with the agenda for today. So we're going to cover a few things. We'll do the panel introductions shortly. We're going to do a quick overview about Virtuoso because we get a lot of new people in these webinars on a monthly basis, and we want to make sure that we can do a quick overview to the audience. We are able to give them an overview about all the new things which are coming in Virtuoso as well. Then we're going to deep dive into the case study, which Pac has kindly agreed to come on this stage and speak to us and have a discussion about this and go into a little bit more details. We'll then go through the Q&A, but feel free to ask questions and during the session as well. And then we'll go to some call to actions from there. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to do a quick introduction about myself, hand it over to Pac so that he can introduce himself as well. So Vinay Joseph, I'm the Director for Global Alliances at Virtuoso QA. I've been with the tech space for almost 20 years now. I love to take problems, simplify them, and also help customers understand how they would be able to implement technology into their business problems and how they can apply those technologies to all spheres of business and make life easier for them. I'll now hand it over to Pac to do a quick introduction about himself. Pac, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And I am Pakinath Jairaj. People call me Pac. I'm actually a global test delivery lead with DXC Technologies. I'm with DXC for last 15 years. and I have more than 20 years of experience in quality engineering. So also I'm a PMP as well as SAFE SPC certified. So implementing scaled agile framework practice also across the accounts. So last 1 year, we are working with Vinay and Virtuoso team to implement AI platform in one of our major clients. So I'm happy to share those details with you all today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Pak. Moving on. So what are the key takeaways, right? So in addition to a quick overview, which I'll run you through about Virtuoso, we're going to go deep dive into the implementation which Pak and team have done over the past one year or so. We'll understand what was the business context, why they selected Virtuoso. We'll talk about their journey to go from zero to thousands of test cases that they migrated from their existing solution into Virtuoso. How did they measure the impact, and what were the real good impact that they were able to measure? And what are the lessons that what are the war stories that they've learned from this, and how you could also apply it when you start with your journey at Virtuoso as well, right? So those would be the key takeaways. It's super important because, hey, in Virtuoso 101 so far, we've been running this for over 7 or 8 months now. And our focus has been to provide more details about how Virtuoso can be used, give an overview about Virtuoso, how we work with partners, and so on and so forth. But we haven't taken a case study and done a deep dive. This session is primarily to do that and give you a flavor of how does it feel like implementing Virtuoso for some really critical applications at scale, and what is the impact that it has been able to create on the ground, right? So those are things that we will talk about today. Now, getting started, again, as we normally do, we'll do a quick overview and we'll start with the problem statements. So as you can see here, for those who are new, let me just quickly give a view about why Virtuoso started, what were the problem statements it was trying to attack, and why it is important from a QE perspective. So even now, majority of the customers that we talk to, they are predominantly testing manually. And that has been quite a big opportunity for us, but also a big pain point for existing customers who are trying to scale their quality engineering services to make sure that they're able to use automation strategically. The primary reason why they're not being able to scale or implement automation is the following. So one, of the 20% odd that has been automated so far, about 60% is with open source solutions like Selenium. If you include the frameworks that have been built on top of Selenium, and we'll cover that off with PAX shortly, but we include those and also some of the commercial tools, legacy tools which have been built. Some of the major issues with those platforms have been, number one, 80% of the time that a developer would spend on or an estate would spend is on maintaining the test scripts, existing test scripts, and only about 10% in authoring. Add to the fact that all of these frameworks, they require really well qualified estates to work on them, which means that they cost more. They are much more valuable skills to the organization. They cost more. And essentially, all of that contributes to a poorer ROI when you're trying to develop an ROI for your automation projects, which is the reason that customers do not start in the first place. The second reason being, it is not fast enough. If you want to get something tested at the same speed at which your agile teams, and primarily now with agile developers who are supercharged with AI, the speed at which they can bring in the code, the test team is lagging behind. And that is essentially some of the major concerns why people are not able to automate more, which targets their release success because they have to do a lot of things manually, which essentially means that there's a good chance that things can be missed out. And it also affects the release frequency because they don't release faster, primarily because they've not got things automated. Now, to tackle that, what we did was we released Virtuoso QA in the market. The company started in about 2017, but we were able to release the product in the market about 2020. In the past 4.5 years, what we've done is we have grown into an end-to-end functional testing platform, which is primarily focused on web applications and business systems. We are also targeting desktop and mobile later this year. But what we primarily do is speed up testing by 10x. We deliver real cost savings to your projects from an SI perspective as well as for your end customers, and an accelerated path at which your businesses can use automation to release code faster and improve the quality of your applications, right? Now, how do we do that, right? Primarily, we are focused on front-end UI UX, as you can imagine, but we do also do API testing. It's used for functional integration, visual compatibility, accessibility, and security scanning can also be enabled. Those are not the primary use cases, but the primary use cases is anything which is related to a web app development, anything which can be accessed via a browser or an API, whether it's custom applications or enterprise systems like S/4HANA, Workday, ServiceNow, Salesforce, or Dynamics 365. What are the business drivers? Where time to value is critical for customers who or GSI partners who are making sure that they are able to release code quickly and go to market quickly for their end customers. They want to invest in strategic automation, and they want to move to a CI/CD driven automated pipeline. Now, how do we do that? There are three major aspects of our platform which are really standing aside compared to the plethora of platforms which are in the market. Number one, live authoring. So the whole concept is you can write test cases at the same speed that you can write manual testing. We'll talk about in this case study how they have pivoted from an approach where they were having manual test cases written and then handed it over to an estate to convert them into automation to a point where they can, the manual testers, the business analysts, they come together on Virtuoso, they can write the test cases on the go. Then you would have essentially everything that you've written is with plain English. So you would be able to write your test cases using low code, no code solution that we have, essentially using NLP. And that is now supercharged with AI, because the AI can think and suggest what test cases you need to write. And to top it all, the major problems where 80% of your time is spent on maintenance, it's eliminated because of the self-healing aspects of AI, which allow you to reduce the amount of effort you need to spend on maintenance of the applications, and majority of your time can be spent on writing new test cases, which improve the coverage. All right. Now, let's just understand how does it affect you with all of these features, right? So number one, everyone automates. So this is a charter which every GSI has to make sure that they can upskill their resources. They're able to do more with less, and they're able to make sure that all the great business knowledge which is there in their functional testers can, they can also get a platform where which they can improve the quality of the services that they are delivering, which is essentially they would be able to automate their tests as well. You are able to test very early in the project life cycle from the sprint itself, and even in some cases before your applications land into production. So we're going to talk about how that happens within sprint testing, and the speed at which you can create test cases enables you to do that. And above all, you would be able to transition to leaner teams, essentially no more separate functional testers and automation testers. It works as one team along with the other agile players, development business analysts, so that you would be able to ensure that quality becomes everyone's responsibility and not just for the testers. Now, how does it impact from an end customer perspective, right? So there are four major pillars that we look at. Number one, from a risk perspective. So all of this, where you're able to automate more, you're able to automate early, you're able to deliver, reduce the maintenance effort, essentially reduces the risk profile in your programs, because you would be able to test more, test very early, and you would be able to get higher amount of coverage, which reduces the quality risks in your program. Number two, time. Because you're able to automate early, you're able to automate very quickly. It reduces the amount of time it takes for you to go to market. Lastly, quality. So all of this where you are testing early and you're getting more coverage, it improves the overall quality of your production systems. And more importantly, for CFOs, it also improves the cost efficiencies because you're getting a platform which allows you to do more with less resources. All right. Now, with that, I want to do a quick demo and then we'll quickly jump into the discussion and the topic of the day, which is why we have Pack today. So just to get started with a quick demo, which I'm going to cover off in 10 minutes of time. So Virtuoso essentially is a SaaS-based solution. So there's nothing for you to download, install, or configure. You can get started by just getting access to the Virtuoso platform on the browser. Uh, you It just allows you to write test cases. It allows you to execute them, maintain them, report on them, as well as you can get it integrated very quickly with your defect management, test management systems as well, or your DevOps systems, so that you would be able to integrate this into your overall profile of test management ecosystem of tools. Now, for you to get started writing a test case, it's as simple as just making sure that you are able to identify what are the you're able to basically look at the application and write test cases very quickly. So let's just take an example and see how it works out. So I'm going to take an example of an insurance application, and we will showcase how that works very quickly so that you will be able to understand how you can write test cases very quickly in Virtuoso. So to start with, there are two steps that I've written here, which is one, navigate to the URL. And the second step is just making sure that the URL is properly loaded. So it runs a dynamic test, which essentially allows you to validate that, hey, the V insurance on the system is available, and that allows you to write your test cases. Now, if I want to get started with login, just make sure, maybe I just did a small mistake here. And when you are starting to write the login steps, as you can imagine, as soon as I click on the new step, it is already thinking and it's able to define what are the steps that you can write. So as you can see here, it has already said, hey, write username in the field, input username. As soon as I select that step and click on save, it automatically identifies the field. It writes into that field and you have a test step completed. Again, it keeps thinking based on the field. So it's essentially using Gen AI to understand what is there on the DOM, what are the likely processes that you want to achieve based on the comments that you provided here. And then it just keeps suggesting those test steps very easily. So you don't even have to, right? You can also type it in and just say, hey, click on the login button, right? And this would allow you to also write those test cases on your own as well. So as you can see here, we have clicked on login, but unfortunately it's not the login button. So let me just correct it and say, hey, click on button login, and that would just allow you to identify the button and click on this. Now you can write a wait to ensure that, hey, you are able to see the policy portal um, on the screen, and that is something which would allow you to make sure that the correct page has loaded correctly. And that essentially is how quickly you would be able to write the test cases and make sure that your test cases are getting executed, and you can immediately see how exactly it's working, right? Now, when we are writing these test cases, as you can imagine, we are only providing the hints which we can see on the screen, but the tool is also doing a lot of things in the background. What it's also doing is, when it's identifying these fields with the hints that it's providing or we are providing, it is essentially capturing all the XPath, IDs, CSS selectors, and the element structure in the background, right? This is not something that you need to do. The tool does that in the background as soon as it identifies the right button. And that would allow the tool, even if things change in the future. So for example, if there are aspects of the element structure which change, which is mostly the case, which happens when you're looking at very large applications, hundreds and thousands of screens, it's most likely that some of these will change. The tool understands that, hey, there are certain selectors which are broken. It would remove those broken selectors, then predict the element on the screen, identify the new selectors, and continue to run the journey without any manual intervention. And this is where it saves you a lot of effort in maintenance, because the focus from from an application platform perspective, it's to ensure that less time is spent on maintaining the application regression suites, and more time can be spent by your testers, your estates, in creating new scripts and increasing the coverage and testing very early in the project lifecycle. All right. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do outside of this as well. So we've talked about the aspects of making sure that you can write test cases faster. You can also make them test data driven. So there's a lot of options that you have. So you have an AI generated test data table. You can give it a table name, say I want to create customer data. So I can just say create 10 rows of customer names, address, mobile number in the US locale, and it would automatically use the data or the prompts that you provided and create test data automatically, which essentially, once you've created the test data table, you would be able to assign it to the journeys that you have written. And that would allow you to make sure that an end-to-end process can be integrated from a test data perspective as well. So there are multiple different combination of test data that can be used and make your journeys test data driven. Similarly, you can also integrate it with your test management tools. So it could be Azure DevOps, your Jira, and other testing tools as well. But if you have any of your journeys where we identify an error, so for example, one of these journeys have failed, what you would be able to do is go into that failure. You can do a root cause analysis. And again, this is where GenAI is used. So GenAI essentially, because we are doing the execution in our cloud environment, we have access to the page source at the point of failure, the network logs, and the console logs. The GenAI would basically analyze all of this information and provide you an insight, which you can pass it on to your developers, or even your testers can use it to understand why it has failed and how it can be fixed very quickly. And that allows you to also integrate it with your test management or test defect management application. So for example, we have a integration already done with Jira. So you would be able to select your Jira project. All of these aspects, like the screenshots and the description, is pre-populated. You can edit it as well. And once you create a ticket from here, it would get integrated with your the tickets that have been created in Jira, and you would be able to look at the status of your uh, tickets that have been created. Once they are fixed, you would be able to retest them and start making sure that the defect fix test cycle can be significantly reduced. Right. There are a lot of other features, including things like you can create execution planners. We are integrated with Browser Stack and Lambda Test. So what that allows you to do is, when you're writing tests and you want to execute tests, you can essentially execute them outside of the default browser that we're using, which is a headless Chrome browser. You can also select different OS browser combinations, which are already integrated through Browser Stack or Lambda Test. And you would be able to make sure that the same journeys can also be compatibility tested with the different operating systems, mobile devices, and Windows devices, etc., with the different OS browser combinations as well. And you can even select the browser versions that you want to set it up against. So that is a quick overview about Virtuoso. I hope this was useful. Now I want to jump into the topic of the day, and just want to bring in our lead back so that we can have a quick discussion and a dialogue about what has been done with the project that Pac has been leading for the past 1 year. So Pac, I want to bring in you here now. Would you be
Yeah.
able to give a quick background about what was the customer using before you got started with Virtuoso? What was the driver behind selecting and going with Virtuoso? So if you can give a little bit of background around that, that would be really useful.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, before that, that was a quick and nice demo because one of this kind of demo only impressed me a lot 1 year back. So then I kickstarted, got my basic certification, and started using it in our project. Anyway, thank you. So,
Yeah.
so here in this customer, we are here for almost 15 years. EXE supporting this customer. But we bought the TCOE best practices implementation, the whole model, 4 years back. So that means a 3-year implementation, and that was a great success. TCOE, you know that very well, all the best practices and bringing all the different types of testing, everything together under one umbrella, and trying to introduce multiple testing tools, and especially we were using Selenium, so that is no surprise in that. So that was the one, and we were automating almost all the regression test cases with Selenium, and 3 years it was a great success on that time. So yeah, so that is what we were using during that time, and it was running fine till we introduced the new one. We want to move to the AI platform. That's what things changed last year. Yeah.
And would you just throw some light on what was the business driver on? So as you said, it was doing well, but what was the driver from DXC as well as from the end customer to explore something more additional to what is being used, right? And I see there's a raised hand from Brijesh. Brijesh, would you be able to type in the questions in the Q&A, and we'll definitely answer those through the Q&A part. Right, go ahead, Parth.
Yeah, sure. So it is like what in okay. So when we were using Selenium, it's as I mentioned, it's all fine as per so whatever we were successful in that implementation. But later, as usual, client and even DXC was trying to help client in reducing the cost, and then trying to bring the product into market quick. So these are all the major, like we need to go fast as well as reduce the cost. These are all the critical drivers. Then we start looking into we started doing some assessment of our current work, what we can do better. So on that time, some of the points like our framework, Selenium framework was a little heavy, and also it took a lot of time to develop scripts, and also we need to always rely on very experts, Selenium coders for that. And also we were not able to successfully achieve the in-sprint automation. So we want to move to in-sprint automation. So always like N+1, right? So we were not that doing great in that area. So these are all some of the points. And also we need to maintain a separate test lab, everything for Selenium with a physical machine execution. So we want to get rid of, that is one of the major cost saving area we were looking on that time. So that is another thing. So we need to train our resources. So multiple reasons. So these are all the key drivers. So we thought, okay, maybe we need to, all our Selenium coders are very expert. So whatever we can do with that, we achieved it. The next is it like how we can achieve. So we need to go for a different tool and different technology to achieve even further efficiency and productivity out of our testing. So that was it.
And that's a great point, right? So essentially, number one, customers always want innovation in the services. They do not want a service which is a T&M or time and materials. They want continuous innovation. There's expectation that you are improving incrementally, right? And there are limitations at which you can improve when it comes to the open source solutions. So those were some of the major business drivers, and that's something very similar to what we see with other major customers as well, right? That we work with.
Yes, correct.
And I think the in-sprint part is very critical, right? Because as more and more we adopt agile, I think that has become a key driver because uh, everybody wants to go one-touch automation, right? As soon as developers commit, they want to make sure that the regression scripts run, and the source of quality issues which are getting introduced into lower environments, it's caught very early in the project life cycle than later.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. So when we were working on this new technology, as you mentioned, we don't want to get into all the problems what we were facing earlier. So on that time, what we have decided is, okay, let us do a POC on multiple tools. So we went ahead with POC on different tools, and we have a set of goals. So already you can see in the slide. There are certain things we want to achieve using during that POC, most of them, in the sense how to reduce. So this actually to cover, not just focusing on automation, we want to cover the entire life cycle of our testing thing. So one of the thing is like how to reduce the business review effort. They were spending a lot of time in artifacts review. Then we were spending separate time in manual test case creation, automation, script creation, how we can reduce effort there, how we can merge these two activities and bringing into a single item. Then how fast we can create this script and in the early stage of the life cycle so that we can use those scripts in the day one of our cycle one. So that was one of the major discussion point. And during app, we have very big application, lot of support thing going on, more than 10,000 regression test cases. Executing them every time, it's a very challenging one. And especially maintaining those scripts. So how we can reduce the maintenance effort, and we don't want scripts fail and thousands of script and work on that, then execute it. So we want those areas, one of the main area we want to reduce that wastage. And finally, like as I already mentioned, the infrastructure and the cost of maintaining the lab, all we'd like to reduce. So these are all the key points in the POC. So after doing POC on multiple tools, personally, I felt like and our team, like Virtuoso QA, that A platform was most of the areas we were able to achieve using this tool. Then another important point was we were able to train our resources. It's like there is no special, even management team, business team, so we can able to use it straight away now. So then we started, people can, even functional testers start using it. So that's how we saw a lot of benefits, and we introduced that into the team. And also what we have done is, see, the migration is not an easy thing, right? So I already told it's like more than 10,000 test cases. So we went in at two different phases. Like one, we want to go ahead and check all the scripts and optimize all the scripts. We don't want to automate everything again. So then second part, after migration, optimization of all the test cases, then we want to migrate it to Virtuoso. So that migration part, it was again easy. So in this slide, we can see it's a sample data I have given. Like the planned one is like what is that we were thinking based on our earlier automation tools and how long it will take, and again some understanding about which is, so that is what we planned. But surprisingly, we were able to uh, do the automation very fast. So you can see that graph was going up very fast, and we can able to do almost 2 months earlier. We planned to do it in 8 months, but we were able to migrate, training our resources, and then they start working in it, migrating all our regression cases, almost 5,000 within in 2 months ahead of time. We were able to do it. So that is also one of the major thing which client liked it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think those are absolutely relevant. And just coming back to some of the points that we were talking about. So I think one of the most important aspects which you covered is the whole pilot part, right? And that is very critical because number one, there was a good clarity in your team in terms of what were the things that you wanted to improve in your service, right? And that has to be proved in a pilot quickly for you to understand whether you are able to get to those metrics, target metrics, whether you are able to see the ease of reuse, and whether you are able to see the tool in action and see where you want to take it, you're able to achieve those objectives with that. And that I thought was very critical for us to get to the point of answering why Virtuoso and not some other tool which you've evaluated. But just going back to one more aspect, and sorry if I'm just jumping around a bit, but this is really Right. I think it would be good to understand what your existing process was, because I see this that we put in the business context, that you were using analysis, design, automation, and execution, which is the standard process which is used in traditional automation tools, right? And how your thought process was that there are a lot of rework here which could be avoided, right? So how did that thought process come in? Because this is what everybody follows, right? You have a functional team which is expert in the business, but you can't equip them with all the estate knowledge, right? Because you can't get such resources which have both the best of both the worlds, right? And that is essentially very critical for projects and the people who join our meetings to understand how you thought about making that improvement, and first identifying that this is a possible problem for us to fix quickly.
Okay, so see, change is always a challenge, right? So, and especially testing resources who's working in this project for almost 5 years, 6 years. They're used to that kind of process, and changing it's very, very difficult. So we are all aware of that. So what we were doing initially is, this is the process we are following in a TCOE model, right? Whatever mentioned in the bottom, it's like a traditional, everybody is following this one. The main thing what we have done is like lean analysis. We try to understand what are the areas are taking more time, okay, and how we can use the tool to improve those areas. So, for example, we were requirement analysis, that phase, right? So what we were doing is, especially test case scenario writing. So we get the requirement. We will be writing a test case in Excel and directly uploading into ALM. Then we request the business team to go and check the ALM and review, come back, and they will take 1 week to come back and tell us these are all the issues, those kind of things. So I was seeing like on that time almost 1 to 2 weeks of delay in that whole process, which can be done in 1 hour if they all sit together and do that. So instead of one of the proposal or change we made is like, why do we need to write everything, write in Excel, ALM, and setting up, waiting for 1 week to get the feedback? The first thing change what we have done is, why can't we directly write those directly in Virtuoso itself? Because writing a test case, right? Instead Excel, it's like a NLP, like English like language, we can start writing it. No need to be perfect. So we have a live authoring option. So we can, instead of writing in ALM, write it here. So that is the first change, right? So to duplicate effort reduced here. So then we set up a meeting with the BAs after all the test cases here ready. And 1 hour meeting, we can able to review most of the journeys. If you take a journey, call that respective BA, go through that in the Virtuoso itself. We have a live screen, so they can also suggest immediately. Whatever the 2 weeks process become a 2-3 hours process after that. So that was one of the thing. We identify the gap, how we can use the tool to fill that gap, right? That is one thing. The second, the same thing. Manually, we are writing test case. Then we have a separate automation team. Once the review, everything is done, then we have to hand over that to automation team. They will be writing a framework, that code which Selenium can understand. That is another effort, right? So here what happens is, whatever a team writes it, then we have some experts, 1 or 2, who knows actual coding in the team, earlier team, right? They will just add some checkpoints with the existing, whatever already written in Virtuoso, whatever additional coding if needed. So they will be trying to modify it in a few hours. Then the scripts are ready for that. They are automation scripts. So here again, we reduced a lot of effort writing one separate meeting between manual, and also we were able to merge both manual and automation team. And third, another area is the self-healing part, right? So we used to get a lot of failures in Selenium. If you execute 5,000 test cases, at least 500 to 600 or 1,000 script will fail. Main reason is changes in the screen, all the thing, right? Now, here, almost 50 to 60% of the scripts, the failure reduction we are seeing now. The main reason is it's a tool itself do some kind of a self-healing. activity. So we are seeing a lot of reduction in the failures. So maintenance of the script, and we are effectively using the root cause analysis, defect root cause analysis part. So there earlier we won't give any um, valid input to development team, or we won't write very detailed level of defect while creating the defect. Now we can, even testers can see what is the root cause of that. The tool is AI that generating that detail. So we'll go through that. We understand we are adding more detail and attaching that report itself in the defect. So that all the areas, the entire life cycle, wherever the waste or gap earlier took a lot of time, we identified those areas and try to uh, save time using this AI platform.
And that's excellently put back, because again, that essentially visualizes that there are white spaces in the traditional automation scenarios which can be attacked, and how those can add significant value to what you are delivering as a project as well as for the end customer as well, because
Right.
the better you are able to um, capture those white spaces and earlier you are able to do that with the right platform, it would affect your service and the CSAT as well. So now
Absolutely. Yes.
I think one of the things which I wanted to highlight is the whole concept of library checkpoints and Virtuoso, and how that essentially aids in this J curve that we can see in the the migration aspect. So when you start writing test cases, and one thing which I think Pack's team has used it significantly well than what we see, we are starting to see that happen in other customers as well, because we see that this is a very powerful tool. But essentially what happens is 90% or 80% of scenarios, they're using very similar flows when it comes to an end-to-end business process, right? So if you've already written some of those aspects, it's important that can be reused. And that reuse is what allows you to see that J curve when you're building test cases in Virtuoso, right? Because I've seen with this project that there are certain checkpoints which are used at least 2000 times or 3000 times, right? And that allows you to significantly improve the speed at which you can create test cases. It just becomes drag and drop from the library checkpoints which are already created, right?
Yep.
And significantly improves the migration speed, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you're writing, and you don't have to um, use a lot of effort to create test cases once a certain set of threshold of checkpoints is reached.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So now team also started seeing the entire end-to-end scenarios journey, right? So we won't think in that angle. So if they used to create all the test cases independently, even they will not have a clear view of what exactly it is getting written. And now, because of the journey and the inside journey, like a test case is kind of a checkpoint. So we all write it in that model checkpoint function wise, in older terms, right? So we were able to create it. And we using the journey summary, the team is, if you take a peer review, they are creating a journey summary and try to see what is covered in that, all the point. And also, as mentioned, it is very easy to go and check what is covered. I use simple drop down, I can select one checkpoint here in any test case. So that's the reason. And especially for us, okay, claims creation, there are thousands of different scenarios, like different data comes into picture. So we can able to reuse most of our codes again and again everywhere. So that's the reason you are seeing reuse is very high in our project. And that is the main reason, even the graph also going up. We even compared to the planned one, we were able to do it very quickly.
All right, perfect. Now, just going back to some of the aspects of what is the impact that you were able to measure, right? And that is super important, because I know that you're delivering variety of test services, and apologies if I'm and before I go there, team on the call, I understand that there's a lot that we are covering. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, and we would definitely try and answer those as we go along, or we're going to stop in a few minutes time, which would also allow us to answer your questions. So please feel free to ask questions. Now, this is something which I've seen you guys have done great in terms of measuring the right metrics and also documenting what is the impact your your new approach is bringing to the services that you're delivering. So it'd be great to understand how you went about identifying the right set of metrics and what were the improvements that you were able to see across the board.
Yes. So maybe you would have noticed already, we already moved away from our 20 years of the traditional testing metrics, like what is the efficiency, productivity, all the things. Now we try to align our metrics with the whole business, the product level, the
Yeah.
end-to-end cycle, right? So what are the areas we can measure it? So this is our overall TCOE model. So all the top types of testing, any things covered in one umbrella, and then different types of applications, remediation, enhancement, and one major cloud migration any company is going through right now. And we have our test overall management in sprint automation. So combining everything with the use of AI platform, we were able to achieve the last four boxes. These are all the very high level. We are tracking some more also. So like if you take the test artifacts review with business team, we were able to save at least 50% time for BA. So they were spending a lot of time earlier. Now they are spending 1 or 2 hours in a meeting for a release, and it is done. And if you because we were able to merge manual test case writing and automation all together in single place directly in which so we can able to save at least 25% in this area alone. And when we compare with other traditional tools, the execution is very fast because the way we are organizing the checkpoints and the thing and grouping, because of that also and it's a little faster also compared to other tools. So at least 25% test execution cycle time savings we are seeing in last 1 year. And maintenance is a major thing. So now uh, because of self-scaling and easy to go and change the code and no need to go to multiple places to change and execute it for different reason, we can able to save at least 50% in maintenance effort also. These are all few of the items. If I take cloud migration, right, I would say execution cycle time overall came down 80% reduction. The main reason is we are not waiting for the application to migrate to cloud. We are doing every automation in on-prem, and day one we are running the entire script. So earlier we used to one of the applications just coming in my mind like 17 days of execution time. Now we are doing it in 3 days because it is available from day one. So these are all in the cloud. There we are saving a lot, 80% time. So a lot of metrics we are covering, but everything aligned to the end-to-end cycle and try to match that.
Okay. And there are two questions back if I can take those questions. So there's one which is, does Virtuoso integrate with Microsoft Azure and JMeter? So let me just answer that. Yes, absolutely it does. So we have essentially a lot of our customers already integrated with Azure, where they can actually trigger the test cases from ADO. They are able to execute the tests in Virtuoso. The report goes back directly into ADO test plans, and you would be able to see the report in Azure ADO in terms of what has passed, what has failed. On JMeter, we do not have a direct integration, but what we do support is you can extract the Virtuoso scripts into a format which can be converted into JMX and JMeter format. And that essentially allows you to save a lot of scripting effort on JMeter, because traditionally what I've seen with other tools is whatever the test automation solution, JMeter followed its own process, and then they had to put a lot of effort in maintaining those JMeter scripts, because every time they run it, it breaks. So with self-healed test cases can be just exported and then just converted into JMeter, JMX format, and they can run their performance tests end to end as well with the journeys that are written in Virtuoso. So that's something that we absolutely cover. There's also a question from Sangeeta on if it's permissible to know what tech stack is the customer application built upon, S4, Salesforce, how much data change happened with the application in a release. So is that something that you can throw a little bit of light on? I understand that you won't be able to share all the details back, but is there some information that you would be able to provide on the tech stack for your end customer?
So I didn't get that question, Vinay. So what is it? Could you repeat that?
So essentially, the question was, what tech stack is the customer application built upon? Is
Okay.
it S4 or Salesforce? I know it's a custom built application. It's
Okay.
not.
So yeah, okay. So it's like, okay, I don't want to reveal much, but we have all the end-to-end like Salesforce. We have, um, yeah. So whatever we have in the market, we have everything. This is one of the major Fortune 500 companies. So for our claims insurance thing, right? So all the technologies involved here. So yeah.
Absolutely. And the second part of the question was, how much delta change happens within the application in a release? So I know that you follow a monthly release cycle.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that there are major releases every month.
Yes, correct. So we have, it's a very, very data oriented testing because it's insurance, it's all numbers. And whenever they release a new product, so it's like a data. So we need to make sure from end to end, the data is going flow and there are a lot of compliances, everything is involved in this. So it's very data centric testing and so we have, you won't believe, like almost, even for me, it's the first time, 8 different test UAT environment alone. So different types of testing is happening, different environment, and we have a golden copy migrating into different. So we faced a lot of issues with the data setup, and that was a major challenge for us because we were able to maintain data within our scenario journey level, table level, we can create it. So somehow we can able to manage it without going for an external data for our scripts. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for answering that extensively, Pak.
Mhm.
I hope, I mean, guys, if you have more questions, feel free to keep posting them and we'll keep answering that. So Pak, we've covered the measurable impact, but let's now get to the crux of it in terms of what were your major learnings, right? And this is very critical for people who are on the call to understand in terms of what do you think were the pitfalls? How were you and we together as a partner, were we able to circumvent those? And also, um, what were the things that were realized as savings and as improvements, which you never anticipated because of the way initially when we do a limited pilot, right? We did a 2 to 3 week pilot. So outside of that, what were the things that were surprises to you, which really impacted from a improvements perspective, but also things which were initial challenges and how we overcome those?
Yeah, okay. So the major surprise, it's like a lesson, whatever, right? It's when we start this one, I never thought that I will be end up in even changing the overall process. Okay, so I thought maybe the same process, and just I'm going to fit this tool into the life cycle. But that was not the case. So as I mentioned earlier, after using the tool, after checking all the functions, how we can use it, we started using that, reducing a lot of effort in requirement analysis and even reviewing with business also. We changed the whole process over there. And then merging of manual and automation work, right? So we were moved away from Excel or ALM or whatever the test management tool and separate one for automation. I never thought, even while kickstarting the project, almost 1 or 2 weeks, we were going in that same model. We were writing test cases in Excel and creating. Then again, we rewrite in Virtuoso. Then suddenly one day we realized, why we need to do in that way. Why can't we directly write it here and make it as a test case management thing? So
Yeah.
these are all some of the major surprises. Like I never thought I will make a overall change in the end-to-end test life cycle itself, the process itself. And that is one of the thing, and it was a very good learning for me also in this overall thing. I never imagined in that way throughout my career. And the maintenance effort, it came down, maybe multiple reasons. So we no need to maintain a lab and we no need to set up a lot of things. It's a cloud-based one. Just log in and you can start using it. You can do all the parallel execution very easily. Thing. So that's all very simple for anyone can do it. This is another thing which was really good. And the first point, like a design best practices, right? So if you're moving to a different tool, changing a process, it's always very challenging one to set up that process, review, get it approved, and even how we are going to maintain all our functions or reusable components. So that we actually planned for 2 to 3 months to do the entire thing, but it was very simple. We finished it in 1.5 months. So that is another big thing. So the whole ride was very smooth. So we never thought it's going to be a major one. I forgot to mention that after implementing after going through the entire 1 year process, even client liked it. One of our client manager, my director here in a client location, he suggested, why can't you go for a submit the whole process, because it's one of the major change you guys done here. It's achieved a lot of benefit. Why can't you go and submit that case study with the European Testa Award thing, right? So we have submitted, and in fact, we won first prize in the European level thing. This process, whatever we set up, the benefit we achieved. So I think in some slide that is mentioned. So we won that award in 2024 December. So that was then only even we realized, okay, this is one of the standout process we implemented. Till that time, even we were not aware of the impact. Yeah. Yeah, this one. Okay.
No, absolutely. So that's essentially a great win from a perspective that this was nominated for European Software Testing Awards and the leading vendor tools and technologies, and DXC along with Virtuoso and the customer, we nominated and we won. So which is a great achievement for all of us. But I think it just goes on to say that I think, and thanks Pac for joining and explaining all of this. I want to take a few minutes to let people ask any questions
Yes,
if
sir.
they're, but it's been really enlightening for at least me to present this, because I was really keen that we keep talking the talk. Let's bring in some of the people who are actually delivering value with Virtuoso and get them to talk to our the audience which joins this calls on a monthly basis and talk about what we are achieving together. And that's essentially the message we want to take to everyone, that hey, as a partnership, for the way we enable the GSIs, we work together, it's essentially geared towards how we can add value to your end customers and to your projects, right? And how we can we can just transform the testing processes from the traditional ways of working, which is going to make a lot more impact to the quality, costs, risks, and also time to market perspective. And those are really important messages that you want to take away from here. Just a few things which I want to mention before we end. So just a quick call to actions. I know that there have been a few limited questions, but feel free to drop in any questions if you have. But if you're looking for more information, feel free to log into our website and reach out to myself or Deepa, who's our business development manager for Global Alliances. We are happy to work with you to understand how we can meet your requirements and go together into this for your customer implementations. There's a lot more information available through our website, so feel free to log into our website and get some information there. But before I close, I have a lot of gratitude towards Pac taking his time out and helping us talk about this story of the implementation that your team has done with Virtuoso. This is super critical for our audience to understand and also take this message across. So thank you so much, Pac, for joining and helping us with today's webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. Thanks for this opportunity. Hope this will give some details to all our audience and they can use it in their project. Yeah.
Sure. So team, before we close, any questions? Otherwise, I'm happy to end the webinar. So I saw that there were a few questions, but if there are more, feel free to reach out to us through our website. There's enough information available for you to reach out to us or reach out to our email addresses, which I displayed earlier. The recording of this webinar will also be available on our website, and please feel free to ping us about all the topics that you want to listen in for your next Virtuoso 101 series sessions in April. Look forward to the next session. Until then, thank you so much and take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.